5. The thing that Terry just passed out was, he calls it a teaser, but it's something that's come to him, that someone cold called him, and they're thinking about putting up battery charging stations for all you guys that have Teslas along the Mirror Parkway there.
So at 11 o'clock, Tesla makes an appointment to speak with me, and they're talking about 16 charging stations that are high art that needs 480 volts to quick charge for Teslas, and thinking about on the other side of Grimaldi's in a underused parking lot there, kind of far away from the highway, but.
These can only be used by Teslas?
It doesn't. The other electric cars would need an adapter, but I would say largely they expect 600 cars a month at that location. Teslas. This is all in advance of the new Tesla 3 that's coming out, which is a lower priced Tesla.
Which has been coming out for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Still a
So they're going to give us a presentation next week. I mean,
Next week or
my
next month?
only flag was how it relates to a POCD for that area.
I mean, what they told me that they find in other communities is that people think of it as a parking lot, which of course it is. So it's a little bit more of a parking lot perhaps, but other communities have deemed it parking.
How long would it take us to get the projector up here?
If it's about 15 minutes,
Well, let's do that because,
it would be nice to have a little notice, quite frankly, of something like
well, okay, so move on.
that. Okay.
We're looking forward here.
So I'll take 15 minutes now and set up this projector.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Projector
Very
for-
good.
For the zoning regulations.
Oh,
She forgot to give a little notice.
yep, okay.
It's always an argument. Okay. So the only major thing on the agenda up here is the receipt and appropriate action on applications and 824 referrals. Town of Woodbridge, 4 Meeting House Lane. The proposed installation of 2 carports for the police department. So, Chris.
She was here to talk to you about it.
All right. Excellent. I'm sorry. Never mind, Chris.
He's much better than me.
He doesn't have the right clothes on.
He's the chief.
I know. That's not the point.
He's like Frank Reagan.
Yeah, right. So obviously, as
She wears a jacket
In a vest.
and a vest. Okay, sorry.
No, I'm here for the 824 review in our hopes of constructing carports in the back lot of the current police department. And they would go right on the same parking area that we're using now. So just be an enhancement of that use of that land.
So the real question is, or the question that I have is, where is it sitting on the property? And is it,
How large is it?
There's two proposed structures.
I don't have a site plan.
I can actually
There's
do that.
a picture, so.
Well, I saw a picture, but I can't tell where it is to the building, and is it in the setback? Is it?
Yeah, I can give you these, that might just make it a little bit clearer.
Oh, no, I didn't have that.
Easier to see.
It's so long.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
The
sir.
short answer to your question is, Jeff, yes, they are in the setback, and there's an application being heard by the zoning board of appeals next Monday on this.
So why are they going to the zoning board of appeals?
Because it's within the setback.
Oh, it is in the setback. It is in the setback.
Chris, the town hasn't accepted exempted this property from zoning regulations?
No. When the firehouse was built, they also needed a variance to be constructed where they were, and they went through the zoning board of
Okay,
appeals.
thank you.
Is it gonna have solar on top?
No. We thought about that, but with the installation of the microgrid and all.
Oh, right.
But there's the two structures. You see there's the one on the left side, right near the Sallyport entrance there. And that structure is approximately 20 by 41 feet. And then the main structure is down in our main parking lot below. It's approximately 40 by 61.
This is gonna be open on the sides, or?
Yes.
And why, after all these years, has this come up now?
It was brought up several years ago as part of the design for the proposed upgrade of our police facility. And then it was, all that was put on hold and nothing, we didn't move forward with it. That was prior, to my position that I'm in now. And now we had the steep grant funding that we had that was to be used for the construction or as part of the construction for the new facility. And we used a portion of that to replace the radio tower in the back and to get the storage shelter for the radio equipment. And that would be a portion of our upgrade to our facility that would be in place now. And with the remaining funds, we thought we would do this because it would complement. It would be a permanent structure that will be there, enhance the enhance the project. It would be useful, and it'll be permanently in place when hopefully in the future we do some upgrade to the facility.
So this would all be covered by the steep grant?
Correct.
How far are they into the zone with the setback?
So canopy A is about 68 feet away from the property line, and canopy B, I wanna say it's like 40 feet away.
So, so when you say the property line to the left?
To Center Road. They're not within the property, the setback to Meeting House Lane, they're in the setback to Center Road.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
And so, I'm sorry, I'm gonna repeat it again. So canopy A is 28 feet into the setback?
It's 68 feet away, so it's 7 feet into the setback. And
The other one's
canopy
on.
B
Another 20.
is another
Right.
closer to 30 feet.
I have two questions. One, is there a specific reason they want the carports put up now? Did something happen?
No, just that the funding is available to make it happen now.
Okay, so use it. So you use it or lose it,
Correct. And
and that was the best use of the funds that the commission deemed.
yes, and we bid before the Board of Selectmen for it, and they were in approval, and they made, we're making this referral to your commission, obviously through them. And the finance director also applied and got an extension on the funding for this grant to make sure, to help make sure it's available and it's not lost.
Well, I'm a little concerned about what it looks like. I mean, it's not the most attractive thing, and it is in the center of
And
town.
I think that's what we're,
Trying to
the
work around.
architect will be here to go before zoning next week.
Yeah. So I guess that's why I'm kind of hung up on that.
So what is the benefit to the police department?
The benefits are that it'll serve to improve vehicle accessibility during the inclement weather, keep the cars snow-free and ice-free. Currently, as you can see, we're kind of landlocked there, so the cars, every time it snows and Public Works has to come, we have to shuffle the cars around between all the parked cruisers and the personal vehicles, move them back and forth. As far as officer safety, it'll certainly help reduce any possible injuries that go along with slips and falls. And now our cars are filled with electronic equipment and also the long guns and rifles. So this will keep them out of the cars out of the weather, out of the direct sun when they're parked there, and keep them secure.
How many police cars are?
Right now we have 16 department vehicles
Okay.
from top to bottom. Not all patrol vehicles, but including the
Yeah,
administrative vehicles.
I meant town-owned vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 16. And you're gonna have 16 spaces here?
Correct.
Okay. So it will not do any good for any personal vehicles, in effect, unless cars are on the road, of course, and there would be spaces there, but,
Right. No, it won't. It will not.
okay.
Well, I'll stick to my original statement. I think it's
I'm sorry. Go
it's
ahead.
just going to look like a gas station in the middle of town. No.
So maybe we could put one in.
No, we don't really want to do that. That's not per our POCD. What is it?
I think it's going to Harlem in the middle of town.
Is there a rendering that's coming next? Is that what the plan is?
Oh, it's-
No, there isn't. This is the closest you get.
So what happens if they did a total rebuild of the police station? Actually, I meant it's probably speculation, but what would happen to this if they removed the police station?
Nothing. This would be separate from that.
I assume the structure can bear up under a foot or two of snow, right? It looks flat, so like if you get 2 feet of snow on top of it, it's okay, right?
Yeah, no, but it is pitched. It's, just the
yeah.
framing makes it look like it's flat, but behind that it's pitched.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, maybe if it were wood. I don't know, wood, but what happens if it was, I mean, I could probably live with what this thing looks like if it was like right up against the center school gym or something. So it almost kind of looks like the building comes down and it comes down again and there's cars underneath.
Right. This was the architect's recommendation to get the most use from the funding that was available. This is what he recommended.
Well, I'm not going to judge the other architect. That just wouldn't probably be right. But but I will say this is pretty uncreative. And
But you'll judge it anyway.
it's, I mean, you know what? This is a town. It's a New England town. There's certain architecture that goes along with a nice New England town. This is like we want to look like the gas station down at the bottom of the hill. And I would probably have less to say about it if it was, where the fire station was and it was behind the fire station and no one saw it. But this is what you see when you drive through town. This is it. I'm not going to tell you that Center School is any great looking building, but it looks like a school.
Right.
And this doesn't help the school. It doesn't look like part of the school. It looks like somebody's going to pull in to get some gas. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean, I feel a little guilty about that. But I mean, so maybe we can talk to him about, I'm not going to say make it out of wood because I think that the town should be putting up things that are as maintenance free as possible. But, maybe he could be putting a gable on the top of this thing. and not make it flat. And again, maybe he should be looking at putting it up against the building. I mean, there's a little more excavating involved in that because it's all grass along there, but it would certainly blend into the building if it was up against the building.
Right, and maybe maybe it was my misunderstanding, because the way he explained to me was that would be what his intentions are to address or answer that before zoning. But this is the first one for me, so I'm asking you.
Maybe Chris and Terry can fill me in, but once they go, so what are we doing tonight?
You're just doing the 824 review.
Right, there's a yes or no. So we say yes, it's done. And the next thing you're gonna go is to get a variance, which means you can put it this close to the street. So, yeah, I know.
Why can't it be tabled pending?
You have
Pending what?
35 days to act on it. It's like, you have 35 days from the date of it coming in, so this
Also,
came in.
you send it back to the drawing board?
I mean, if you have concerns about who's the architect?
Brian Hughes, Chakunsky and Hughes.
The problem is.
He's the one that did the-
probably it's gonna cost more if you put it up against the and the town's not gonna spend any money on this.
Well, we don't really know that.
Well, I'm assuming.
We're speculating.
Yes.
But it doesn't, but our job is,
No, I agree.
they can't go and use financial concerns as a reason to get a variance either. So we can't say that, okay, we like this now because this is the cheapest way to do it, so. I'm kind of tempted to,
I mean, I do think an 824 referral is just for this exact purpose, for the project to get the input of the town planning and zoning. I mean, I think that essentially, we see that, the process of work here, right? It's exactly why he's in front of you, and
he's not actually happy about sitting in front of us.
So is the architect set to come at next month's meeting?
No, he's scheduled to come at the zoning board of appeals meeting next week.
Yes, he doesn't have to.
Monday.
Unless I think it's a good idea. I
35 days
think we
to the
should.
next meeting then?
The 35 days doesn't get you to your next meeting, because you have 35 days by statute to act on this from when they submit
Submit
the
it.
thing to you.
Which was when?
Dated January 18th, received the 19th.
Oh,
So 35 days from there. The other thing to note is that you're advisory. So even if you say no, the Board of Selectmen can overrule you and go ahead with it. So you can give your input, you can do whatever you want. In the end, the Board of Selectmen has the final say.
Yeah, well, I'd say I'm strongly opposed to putting up a structure in the center of town that looks like we sell gas. So that's my message to the Board of Selectmen. If the Board of Selectmen doesn't care what their town looks like, they should put up a gas station. We should put sicko signs out there or something.
Tell me what the
Yeah, I
statutes
know.
say.
I get it.
I'm not the bearer of bad tidings. I'm
Yeah,
letting
this
you
is,
know.
that's,
have you seen the one that Guilford built about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago? And that at their firehouse, police station complex, I think you've seen it.
Yeah, the police station.
Police station's right there, the fire station right there.
and where is the police station in Guilford?
It's on the north side of 95.
You can see it from the highway. I
Well,
think
this
it's off of Goose
probably,
Hill.
I think this probably would look good next to a highway. So I think I believe that. Trying to picture the police station in Guilford, but.
When you go out of the town center, I think it's on 77. It's just as you go underneath 95
On the left-hand side.
So would a change of a roof line, or some architectural embellishment be something that would you be interested in?
I don't really need architectural embellishment, but I think shape and a roof line and some kind of gable or something. I don't think it has to. I mean,
It's hanging out
they
there.
didn't even. They just did all the canopies over the gas on the Merritt Parkway. Those aren't even flat. they angled them and I mean, granted, they also put solar panels on them, but at least they've tried to match the building that was over there, which has gables and a sloped roof. I don't understand how this.
So could you think of this as an opportunity to speak with the architect
Mhm.
and say that we've gotten this input from the town planning and zoning commission and what can be done? I mean, certainly a folded plane wouldn't be so cost prohibitive.
Would or wouldn't? No, I don't think it would, and I also don't think even a sloped roof off of the building would be cost prohibitive, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
So, in spite of what the contractor says here.
No, I'm not a con, but
I know.
I'm just opposed to the concept of the carport sitting out there in the middle of,
Right, well,
not attached to anything.
Yeah,
Sitting out in the middle,
yeah,
and it's in the middle of the town.
yeah.
I think it's,
Is this a Sally port over here, in here?
Is it the what?
Is this a Sally port? You call it a Sally port there?
Yes.
And is on the other, on this side also a Sally port?
No, there's just the one that you drive up.
From
It's
Center Road?
like a garage door.
Huh?
It's like a garage door.
Yes, it's the metal, there's a lower regular garage door, there's the upper metal garage door is the Sally port.
I see.
It's the metal.
I never noticed. Well, I don't think this is really designed for Woodward. The Board of Selectmen obviously can decide whatever they want, but you should make it really clear to them that we don't think. Well, someone wants to weigh in and show it out.
Can we approve it with a recommendation?
You can do whatever you want to do.
don't want to approve it.
Or we don't have to approve it.
Or we don't have to about this?
You have to submit a report to them, so I just need to know what that report needs to state.
Well, I think that, I mean, it's not really an approval at all. It's really just
It
giving us
doesn't
a.
matter.
Exactly, so, I don't think any of us are finding this to be something that fits into the architectural and the rural characteristics that we have in Woodbridge. And granted, I realize that Center School doesn't exactly do that either, but then there should be some attempt to make this go with Center School.
Did you see the shelter for the radio that was put up recently? The equipment shelter that's right at the base of the radio, or towers? It might be interesting that you haven't noticed it, because what it is, it's a prefabricated shelter
Correct.
that you kind of mimic the brick look of the building. It's a lot better than it sounds, by the way.
I hope so.
But it's attractive.
Right.
And to that end, is there anything that you could recommend to the design professional that he would consider to ameliorate your concerns?
Well, two things. One is I think it should be a gable roof or something. I don't know this pitch. I don't know what a gable roof would look like on here.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, I still think it would look good if it were up against the building, and then it would just be like they would just blend right into that building. That to me would be the spot that it's least obtrusive, and also it'd be good if. I mean, it's a police station, so you can't like turn around and say, we think you should put up a lot of trees there so nobody has to look at it, kind of defeats the purpose of being a police station. So we can't really say that either.
You know,
it's not a vegetation.
This photograph shows a vegetated area close to the thing, which actually is a berm that comes up towards the building, and I'm not so certain that the utility of it being attached to the
You
building.
mean this right here?
Correct.
Well, actually, I think you probably could attack, not that I get paid for this stuff, but it's in the house.
Got it.
You could actually easily attach at the height, have it sloped,
Mhm.
the top of the slope,
Mhm.
attaches to the brick building, come down and have your columns carrying your beam going across here and slide your cars underneath, and it's angled.
I don't think we could excavate that berm.
Why not?
Well, I don't know what the footings of that gymnasium.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons why I was saying that most likely the footings don't come all the way out to here.
Oh, I'm certainly no. It's just that I
Okay,
don't know how
so
deep
the
they
only
go.
place that I'm saying you're putting a footing is at the front part, which is 20 feet away, and then you're going down, and you're going down with basically a sonotube type thing. You're going down 48 inches. You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to hurt the foundation of the building.
No, it's just that I don't think that we can excavate that berm that's against that building because of the footings of the gymnasium.
You think the footings of the gymnasium are up that high that that's what it's bound for?
I suspect they are.
Well, somebody should check that out.
Mhm.
But I'm still not going to change my mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I just don't think this is what we want in the center of town.
All these years without it.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go there. If you guys want truck cars covered, I don't have a problem with that. But I think that somebody needs to think about what we're looking at. I guess the other thing is, I mean, so assuming we can figure out what you just said, if that's true or not, I kind of wonder about that. But anyway, that's an easy thing to figure out. But you know, even if that thing went along here, so it's just a lot thinner, so it's only 20 feet wide instead of 40 feet wide. You know, along this line right here, you're already going for a variance for your setback. So whether it's here or here is not going to really make any difference. There's 16 spaces along here. 11, 12.
It's 12 and 4 up on top.
Which is what the canopy is also. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a canopy, but I'm just saying I think it would be better if it matched the town. And I'll stop torturing you now.
Okay. So at this point,
Well, we're not,
where do I
it's
stand at this
not a
point?
yes or a no thing, so she's gonna write a letter to the Board of Selectmen and basically reflect our feelings.
Mhm.
So yes or no doesn't mean anything here,
Okay.
because their yes or no means everything,
Mhm.
so,
All right.
thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Yep, me too. Does anybody wanna add to that?
Chris, in order for, if we vote no, recommend no, then they need a certain majority? It's not just a simple majority, is it?
It's not, I don't think it's a simple majority.
No, super.
Yeah.
It's a super majority to
Yeah.
overrule.
So if we vote no,
They need a 2/3 vote.
they need a 2/3 vote.
To overrule.
Which is 4
Huh?
out of 6. 4 out of 6,
Yeah, it's-
which
which
is
is
their
no big
majority.
deal. I know, I understand. This was more for information than anything else.
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting. But as a strategy, but I think we just need to have a strongly worded letter. I'm not going to get into a fight with the Board of Selectmen. They can get a 2/3 majority.
That's why I
We
said.
can just go by party line. It's not that big a deal. It's not that hard to do. So I don't think that's it. I think they just need to get the point. I think they need to understand that this is their town too. And they need to maybe instruct the architect to try to make it look like it goes with this town instead of with the new gas station down the hill, which has a nice flat canopy.
Would there be a convenience store
Which
as
I'm
well?
which I'm gonna guess he probably told them it's gonna look just like that thing down the hill. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so let's go to Leslie. No, this is Jim Urbano's, right?
Yeah,
This
Yes.
is April. This is for March.
yes.
Oh,
So you're safe. So we had requested that he give us to us early. He has. So So,
You don't want to do new rules first? Get them out of the way.
do what?
The new rules, commission procedure,
Okay, we can do that. Want to talk about
just to
that?
get it out of the way.
Yes, I would. Okay, so, I've put in, I actually cut and pasted this from another town, because they had people in that town kind of commenting, kind of complaining a little bit like the same thing that we hear here, that not everybody feels like they get notice, enough notice, just listing it in one paper. A lot of people don't read those papers, kind of the same thing that happens here. So this is what they had come up with, and to be honest with you, I actually thought that we had changed our procedures to do something similar. I thought it was like one of the first meetings I ever did. But regardless, this way it's a little more formal, everything's written down. So, assuming everyone's had a chance to read this, does anybody have any questions? We can't, this has to go before, I think, the ordinance committee, before it
No,
gets put into our regulations.
you put it in your regulations. You
Uh,
amend your regs to incorporate a procedure for notice.
Right, so we're not necessarily, but we have to do a public hearing for that.
Correct.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting now is that we approve this, but we can't force anybody to do anything. We can just ask that they do it until we actually put it in our regulations. So I would like us to do that.
So currently, right now, when somebody comes in, what we do is we send a notice to the abutting property owners.
Not on everything.
Yeah,
Well, like on the zoning change for the Urbana property, we didn't do that.
no, but there, you can't do that because you'd have to notice the whole town.
No, we want to notice the abutting neighbors.
But that's, it was the whole district, it
Yeah,
wasn't
it-
just the property.
Yeah, it
So you
wasn't
would have
just-
had to notice a large area because you'd have to notice everybody that abutted the general business and
No, I really
typically-
think it just needs to be abutting the abutting property owners. I think that's fine.
And that's what we do with normal applications that come in. With zone changes, we never notice any abutters because it's a town-wide thing that everybody can comment on.
Which is one of the reasons I'm suggesting we put up a sign. So, I think everybody needs to know when things are happening in their neighborhood.
But I just have that question, I guess. So if it's a zone change which is affecting the whole zone, how do you do the signs?
There's only one sign on the property.
But if it's a zone change, it's not affecting one property. I mean, his zone change affected initially the whole GB district that goes from New Haven all the way up as the hill's going out of,
I understand.
so it's impossible to put a sign on one property because it's affecting all the properties that are in there.
Well, in his situation, it would have been pretty easy because he was only asking for, a zone change, but it was affecting his property.
But it was a generic.
Okay, so
Yeah, but
so
there's
what
two
do you
different
suggest?
topics,
Because
two
I'm really
different
I'm really
things.
trying to make this easy.
I
So
understand.
let's try to figure out a way to resolve how to get to the point where we can implement these things.
Okay, so at the moment, what we do is we send a notice for every normal application that comes in for a site plan or a change of use, and it goes to the abutters. Zone changes never get sent to any abutters because we just never did. But they're required to be sent to the Council of Governments, which we do. So,
So in the past, there was a change in a zone, and I had a piece of property in the zone. How would I find out?
the only way you would find out is if you looked at our agenda or if you read the legal notice that was in the newspaper, because there was nothing that was sent. I mean, some zone changes affect the whole town. So, in this particular case, the last one we did affected pretty much everything along Amity Road and then going back up to Hazel Terrace. And then it would affect anybody who abutted that because, you know, then they're abutting it and they might see it or whatever. So it's trickier with a zone change to do it.
So is there a way to do a better job of informing people that this is what's being contemplated?
To whom?
To who, for what? I mean,
Well, otherwise, I guess, you know, if I were living in in the area you're talking about, I mean, I wouldn't go on our website to every month to look at the agenda, but I would think that if I woke up one day and found out something changed in my zone, I would not be thrilled.
Exactly.
so then how are you gonna do that?
Then maybe
I
you,
don't-
then
I
maybe,
don't know
then
how
maybe
do
you
that.
send a notice to everybody in that zone.
So,
But that's not abutting, abutting is.
Well,
abutting the zone.
you're telling me that a budding doesn't work, so I'm saying, fine, then you send it to the whole zone.
and if you do it, and whatever you do has to apply to the whole town, so if you do something that applies to the whole town, that means you're sending a notice to every person who lives in town.
On any zoning change. So right now,
No, certain zoning changes obviously will not apply to them.
And that's
Well,
making you think that nobody else is gonna have an opinion about that zone change. You're limiting to whom you're sending it to. And there may be people who live elsewhere who
Okay, I'll
might
tell you
have
what,
comment.
you know what, we had the attorney look at this thing, she didn't see there was a problem, so we'll just wait till next month. And it would have been probably better, you've had this for a couple of weeks, if you had questions, I would have really preferred it if you had just called me or sent me an email asking what the questions, so we could have had the answers for you tonight. All right, so we're gonna move on and have Leslie work on the regulations, please. So Leslie's gonna give a presentation, which we're gonna have to turn around, and this is a kind of, if you would, this is kind of the presentation that I think it probably changed a little bit, that she had shown the first selectman. And so I would ideally like us to give input on the presentation, and I would ideally like us to be setting up an public informational meeting for this. Not a public hearing, but an informational. Sound good? Got that?
And Chris was kind enough to copy off the most recent 5 sections.
Oh, great.
Does everybody like that?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go through this fairly quickly. Stop me if you have any questions, comments. So the directive from the town of Woodbridge was to create a set of regulations based upon the plan of conservation and development that have recently been adopted to allow for, number one, the expansion of the tax base in town, allow for increased economic development. This is all within the downtown area. Some people call it the village. I tend to refer to it as the downtown. Nobody seems to have settled on anything.
Just don't call it the flats.
No,
I guess, but then some people like it. I
some,
hear
yeah.
you.
I'm
Yeah,
just
let's
staying
try
away
it.
from it because some people
Yeah.
like it, some people
I would
don't.
stay away from it.
That's why I settled on downtown.
I like
so.
downtown.
So expanding the tax base, allowing for increased economic development, creating an increased sense of community in the downtown area, and obviously also protecting the flood-prone areas. So these are the high points from the plan of conservation and development in terms of the downtown area. One is to connect seniors to resources so that they can age in place. This is not just for people who are living in their houses still, but there's obviously the opportunity for seniors to potentially live down in a more walkable area, closer to bus lines, closer to hopefully greater economic development. Update zoning regulations to include mixed use, 1 and 2 bedroom units, allow in-law apartments for related persons, revise the village district. This is straight out of the POCD, revise the village district designation to match village mixed use and residential areas. provide design guidelines, including elements of form-based code, approaches to promote consistent, high-quality built form, increase the supply and value of housing in the village district, identify and remove barriers to new appropriately scaled multifamily housing in the village on or near routes 63 and 69, expand Woodbridge's menu of housing options, encourage increased supply of starter homes and housing appropriate for young professionals, provide smaller, lower maintenance housing options, develop supply of 55 and over housing options, empty nester housing, and explore age-restricted housing options in the village area. So,
Excuse me, are we supposed to comment on this as you go, or?
whatever you want, that was straight from the POCD, so,
Okay. No, I'm just asking.
oh, yeah, whatever, I'm open to either. So creating a place is more than just creating space for these things. It's about creating character, and there are lots of ways to do that, but I'm gonna focus on 4 of them. Creating access and linkages, comfort and image, use and activities, and creating places for sociability. Access and linkages, looking to make places walkable, places that we allow to increase their density in terms of number of stories, in terms of what we allow there, and thus increasing the tax base. If you have a 1-story building, you have that square footage for your tax base. If you have a 2-story building, you've just increased your tax base by 100%. The highest that we've talked about in the zoning regulations is going up 3 stories, which is what you see in this image. Also looking at ways of creating places for economic development, so that, again, back to the idea of mixed use, where you have the ability to have buildings that can last for a long time, allowing for the changes inside of those buildings while maintaining the character of the public realm, the space outside between the buildings, maintaining that and keeping that area both safe in terms of public safety, also creating that sort of more than just 9 to 5 space. People are living there. If you have restaurants, you have those extended hours, and it makes places safer. And again, encouraging a sense of community, encouraging people to sort of see the same people along the street, and encouraging that kind of sociability. Comfort and image. Again, walkability is really important, having those buildings be in a place and sidewalks near them, where people can feel comfortable walking, feel comfortable seeing each other, but also don't feel like people are about to walk up onto their front porch. So you can see from this diagram, you don't really need that much space. It's more the design itself. It's the railings along the outside porch, columns. They're sort of layers of increasing privacy as you go from the public space of the street toward the house. Here again is an example of increasing the tax base by increasing how close the number of units you can put on a space, and again, the same kinds of things in the last slide. Uses and activities. The more active you have your outside, the safer it's going to be, and the more welcoming it's going to be for people of all ages. Here you can see, if you look carefully at the slide, you can see that this width of the sidewalk changes as you go back. It's a fairly wide sidewalk, probably about 12 feet at the front of the slide, but as you move back, you can see that there's an edge of the building, and the sidewalk gets narrower. It's still wide enough for people to walk, but where you have where you're allowing the wider sidewalks, where you're allowing the building to be set back a little bit more than the adjacent building, you have space to put in outdoor cafes, people can walk by. Here you can see there's a woman in a wheelchair, there are adults, there are children sitting along the storefront. And then sociability, in terms of allowing for serendipitous meetings, giving people safe places to walk around and giving them that sense of a community that, you know, you go, you park your car, you get out, you walk, you go get your coffee, you go to, you know, get your nails done or get your hair cut or whatever. But having all of those things in a close enough proximity so that you're walking through them. This slide, it's a little bit difficult to see, but if you look at the lower right-hand corner, you can see that the before condition of this area, this is not Woodbridge, but the before condition is just it's a giant parking lot and a building. There's not anything there. And it shows what you can do with that space, what the possibilities are. In the larger picture, you can see that the housing and other uses surround the block, and that the parking is inside. Looking just briefly at the application that you're going to be hearing on the electric car chargers. One of the things that you might want to think about is putting, if you decide to allow them, is requiring that they be on an inside aisle so that it's not so it's not right on the street, so that you can put buildings on the street. You don't have to have, you know, a row of chargers on the street. The economic base of that larger image versus the smaller image in the lower right-hand corner is tremendous. If you just think about the square footage that you're adding up that's being built, if you do it right, you can have lots of increased tax base, and it can actually look even better than what you have now. It's not always green out, it's not always pretty out. You can, you know, even in the dead of winter when there are no leaves on the trees, you still can have that image of and that feel of the downtown, and people still, you know, walk. They can park very close to the door of a hardware store or whatever, and don't have to get out and walk really far to get to where they want to go. Also, don't have to continue to drive where they want to go. By having 2- and 3-story buildings, as you see in this slide, you also have the ability for employees to live close to where they work. I don't know about your kids. My kids take public transportation because it's a whole lot less expensive. Allowing for flexible uses over time, just as I said before, allowing these spaces to change use over time so that you're not taking down buildings and putting new buildings up all the time. Much more sustainable and environmentally responsible way to deal with natural resources, not to mention the quality of life in an area that's under constant or at least periodic disruption for new construction. Downtown housing is now the most in-demand type of housing by both 20-somethings and by empty nesters. They actually have the same, the two demographics have the same market demand. Another point is to preserve the value of the existing 1- and 2-family homes that are in the downtown area now. Some of them are along Route 69, and some of them are in the two pockets, one just south of the baseball field, and one just north of beyond Lucy Street. If there's a place to walk to, if there are places that feel safe and feel fun and people want to walk to them, that has a huge, that creates a huge increase in the value of people's houses. We generally think of a 1/4 mile radius, and these residential areas are easily within a 1/4 mile radius of anything that would be construed as the downtown for Woodbridge. Also, we're looking to keep, the idea is to keep the housing as it is now. We're not talking about, we've not been talking in the time that we've been discussing this, about changing any of the residential areas. We're also, you know, there's the amenity of being close to the Wilbur-Cross Merritt Parkway. These areas are in existing well-defined neighborhoods. They're also, the idea is to enhance the areas around these neighborhoods. Again, with improved retail, improved commercial access, and parking for those uses. Allowing the tax base to increase in non-residential areas, which means that some of that residential tax burden can get lifted, or at least moderated a bit. So these are all good things for the existing residential areas. It's about design for people. It's also about understanding that it's about design for cars and fire trucks and other emergency vehicles, 18-wheelers on occasion, but if you start by designing for people, you get people. If you are designing for cars and traffic, you get cars and traffic. So what should downtown Woodbridge look like? How should it feel to people of all ages and abilities? How should spaces feel for pedestrians and bicyclists? How should they feel for, and how do they work for cars and trucks and emergency vehicles? So just quickly, I want to talk about form a bit. The Tale of Two Houses. Both of these houses are very similar in many ways, and in, I think, obvious ways, very different. They are both about 35 feet high. They are both 2 stories. The building materials are different. The house on the right has shutters that wouldn't block the windows if you tried. The shutters on the house on the left actually would cover the windows and work as shutters are supposed to. It's about proportion and design. But the thing to notice that's important, so again here, 2 stories, 3-bedroom house. This one has no front porch, windows are inappropriately sized shutters, 35 feet high, car storage fronting the street. Roof ridge runs parallel to the street, emphasizing the roof, which makes the house look shorter. Looking at those same metrics on the other house, it's also 2 stories. It also has 3 bedrooms. It also does not have a front porch. The windows are appropriately sized with appropriate shutters, 35 feet. Car storage is in the rear of the house, and the roof ridge runs perpendicular to the street, de-emphasizing the roof and making the house appear taller. This is just a really simple example of how form makes a difference in what you experience on the street. So, jumping across the river for a moment, on the left-hand side you see 2 photographs of the Woodbridge Office Park.
It's my office.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's lovely. It could be so much lovelier.
I agree. Let's call my landlord.
if you look at the photographs on the right-hand side, you can actually have what's on the right-hand side and not eliminate anything that's on the left-hand side. You literally build in front of it. You put the parking for the businesses in the back. The streets in that whole area are wide enough to easily accommodate on-street parking on both sides. And if you, again, start looking at building up 2 and 3 stories, you again start looking at creating an atmosphere and a sense of community there that is more intense, but has where people who work there can live there, where people who can have smaller businesses, and where you can have the streets actually be for people and not for the cars and trucks as they are pretty solely now. Another thing that we've talked about is drive-throughs in the back. This is an example of, this is sort of the go-to image for lots of us, of how you can have drive-throughs, whether they're gas stations or pharmacy drive-throughs or Starbucks drive-throughs or whatever they are, in the back of the building, so that you're not constantly interrupting all of the, in every parcel with a driveway. And again, the idea of encouraging rear lots to share access between their drives, so you don't have to have as many curb cuts. But, if this was the gas station in town, this is really different from what most gas stations look like.
And you can have your office upstairs. Just saying.
See that? Saw a lot of props tonight.
So, again, it's about design. All of the things that we've talked about have almost exclusively been about adding things as opposed to taking things down. So here's an example of typical gas station where you've got, this is a corner condition where you have the pumps all out in front and that's all you see. And it doesn't look like a place that anyone would really feel safe or comfortable or desire to walk by. If you look at the image on the right, all that's been done is that there's been this building added on the front at the corner. Again, here this one is 2.5 stories, maybe 2 stories. But it's enough to hold the corner. It's enough to encourage people to cross. I mean, they've even putting crosswalks in that image to, again, encourage people to go to the building, not just the gas station. But the gas station is still there. It's exactly as it, there's no difference in the gas station itself from the image on the left. Quickly, the principles of the transect. I know we've gone over this before. It's based on the environmental, biological system that goes from life in the water to life on mountains and plants and trees, flora and fauna finding their comfort zone somewhere along that. So we've set up transect zones for zoning. For Woodbridge, we're looking at a T1 through a T4. T1 is your most open, your state parks, your national parks, places where man's hand has not done anything. T2, areas like cemeteries, golf courses, ball fields, places that are open space, but they're much more active open spaces. T3 is primarily residential. It is the description of those residential areas downtown that I mentioned before. T4 is where you allow mixed use. You can't force anybody to do it, but you allow mixed use. And then there's a special district. So there's no T5, there's no T6 that we're looking at for Woodbridge. Those are much too intense. Special district we're looking at across right at your office. That that whole side is, we're looking at that as a special district. It's just just needs kind of a different set of rules that are more specific to the character that it is now. Okay, that was it. Tried to do that quickly. Questions, comments? Tried to follow the POCD, what the intent was, and follow the vision of the public that was gathered both during the POCD process and the visual preference surveys that we did at the beginning of this process. Public meetings, meeting with other commissions and commissioners, meeting with the first select woman, obviously, both first select women, over time, and happy to take any questions.
In looking at this from the public standpoint, do they understand the difference between, quote, downtown and the village district? Or do they get totally confused?
We'll find out when we have a regular public input session. We did have one, and I think it was quite clear the last one we had. There weren't that many people here, so it was easy to make it clear. We had maps showing as well.
Okay.
But it's easy to, we'll have maps there, we can have maps there.
So is this an introduction and then you're gonna present what we're proposing for Woodbury?
That was sort of the basic introduction, in some ways more for those at home who may be watching this, because I know you've now seen versions of this a few times. But we'd, well, Jeff, do you want to talk about that?
Well, the idea is, I mean, that's why we kind of need input, the words. The idea is not necessarily to go through each one of every line in here at a public meeting, because we'll probably get a lot of tomatoes thrown at us.
Oh.
So the idea is
And
to,
you'll lose them very quickly.
and you'll lose them very quickly, for good reason, actually.
Yeah.
So the idea is to, at least this is the thought process of presenting the concepts and what we're trying to do, and this is where we're talking about doing it. And then show maps accordingly, because I know Leslie's working on maps now, you know, on what areas we're talking about. So, again, it's, and so just quickly, it's basically we're talking about both sides of Amity Road up to, I have no idea what street it is, but like, I think where the hardware store is. Well, actually, we're gonna go hit
That's
Bradley
Lucy.
Street. So, from Bradley Street down to the property line, and then going across down Lucy Street, and then going up 69,
69.
up to the Mother Church, I think that was who the stop was.
Oh,
It's a Catholic church up
Yeah.
there. So,
And
so
then
that,
across where the river is.
so we talked about across from the river, I don't know how
They're
far.
different zones, like what Jeff just described is what we're looking at for the T4, the mixed-use zone.
Yeah.
Across the river is your special district, and then the park obviously remains the park. But, so we're looking at preserving the residential areas.
Right,
as
there's
history.
residential area in there between, like, between the Willows and Lucy Street, there's a residential area. So, although I think it would be good for them to actually do the same thing, I think there might be some resistance, so I think that we should start with a core area, and then they get those people, you know, if things work out, I mean, it's not gonna happen overnight, unfortunately, but if people in that area saw this thing actually develop along Lucy Street, they'd be more apt to have it in their own neighborhood. But,
I was just saying that, I mean, instead of ending the presentation there, end with this, like what, you know, what.
the maps,
the
yeah, I
maps.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
You've talked about maps quite a bit. Is there maps available for
Well, there's a draft, but I actually wanna,
We haven't reviewed it yet.
yeah,
I mean, we
Certainly
talked,
for the public, you really have to have a map.
yeah.
yes, we agree. Well, we had a meeting with the first selectman, and we're trying to make everybody happy. So, that's why it's still fluid, but it's close, because actually it was a great meeting with the first selectman, so.
Good.
So, and again, the housing, I mean, the retail obviously is obvious, but the housing up above is really, the encouragement of empty nesters, and the idea is that people want to live there as young professionals, and then get involved with the town, come on planning and zoning, all sorts of good stuff, and then maybe move up into town and buy a house. I mean, that's the idea. So, and we don't have anything like that, right? And we also don't have areas where people that are empty nesters who move out, basically. Most empty nesters either stay here and their houses go to garbage, or they move out. So, empty nesters aren't great at maintaining their houses. Probably noticed.
One thing I think is important to remember is that Woodbridge has reached, what you have now is at a certain equilibrium for the demand of the people that live here. You don't have a big enough market to have a Gap or, sort of any of the trendier stores and restaurants that, you may all wish were here. So if you can't, the idea is to also attract a market to downtown, where you will get your 20-somethings and your empty nesters living who want that, who want to be able to go out for dinner, grab a quick bite at night because they don't feel like cooking, or
I mean, listen, Westport Main Street area started out with small mom and pop stores. Since going to big chain stores, which by the way are going out again, so hopefully mom and pop stores will come back to Westport, but otherwise there's a lot of empty stores in Westport. But Madison, I think, is probably a better example of a downtown area that has a more local businesses, owners, than like Westport, even Rye, New York. I mean, it's in New York, but most of those stores along there are not chains. They're small entrepreneurs. More hair salons than I've ever seen in my life, but I've never seen so many hair salons in my life as there were right here. So that's the idea, and the idea is that I don't think we're looking for these apartments to be very big. I mean, I think that 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom studios. The idea is you're not trying to say this is, if a family wants to move to Woodbridge, we would really like them to move into a house in Woodbridge. We don't necessarily want them to move to downtown. So, and I think we have to make sure that we can control that by the code, that this is what you're allowed to build and what you're not allowed to build. So I guess the question is there anything else that you guys looking at this presentation think that Leslie should include in here?
So the process is to adjust regulations over time to allow that potential development. And it doesn't mean that it won't happen, right? It just means we take our hands off of it, and maybe it will go that way. Is that correct? Is that how that works?
well, you're changing the regulations to
What
both
you-
allow and require what it is that you want. You can't force anybody to build.
Right.
You can't force anybody to change what they have just because, if there's very little, if anything, that is currently allowed that wouldn't be allowed. We're trying very hard not to create any nonconformities, but what you're doing is you're creating the regulations to both require and encourage what it is that you do want, and then it will take time. And it also depends upon global markets, really. Who's got money to do what when. And it won't happen in order. It's not like this parcel is gonna develop and the parcel next to it is gonna develop after that, and then the two parcels across the street will develop, and you'll have this, lovely little place all of a sudden right there. It happens as people who own that property or who buy that property decide to make those changes.
And also, you change the regulations so that if a developer wants to come along and wants to develop the area, you don't want them to have to look and say, oh, they don't allow this, I'm gonna have to go for variances, so I don't wanna do that, I'm not going on that. This way you're saying, okay, we're saying, this is what we want in Woodbridge, this is what we want in Woodbridge, this is what our plan showed, we want these kinds of things. Therefore, we change the regulations so that somebody can come in and say, just like now, they can put up a house, this is the setbacks, this is how big it is, they know exactly what it is that they're allowed to do. Down there, it's not really encouraging anything, and this new regulation will encourage what we're trying to do down
For this informational, I guess this would be considered an informational meeting, you're not gonna get, or let me ask you, are you gonna get involved at all in discussing, other than the maps, what changes, any of the major changes between what
there. Well,
we
I
have
think we
now?
should,
Yeah, okay,
oh
and
yeah, of course.
what would those be?
Some of it is where you're requiring buildings to be on the lot,
Setbacks.
so pulling buildings closer to the street in most instances. For instance, on the other side of the river in the special district, allowing people to build in front. Right now, you can't do that. So showing possibilities in terms of images, but also explaining what regulations are changing that would then allow that. Allowing 3-story buildings as opposed to just 2-story buildings. Having what we call a frontage build-out, which is how much of the front of a lot a building has to take up, so that you're building in certain areas, not in every zone, but by percentage per each zone. How much are you taking up? That's part of what ultimately defines the character of a neighborhood, whether it's more densely built up or less densely built up. So the percentage of that frontage build out in the residential areas would be less than it would be, say, than we'd be proposing on, say, Lucy Street.
Makes sense.
I mean, we went through,
And how long do you expect your presentation to last?
That's how many people show up.
yeah. I mean, the presentation itself doesn't have to be terribly long,
Okay.
and it's.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but, we're gonna put this online. So this needs to go online, so that,
And what type of notices are we gonna give about the presentation? To try to get people to come?
Well, under your previous conversation, you want to mail it to everyone in the town, right?
works for me.
When is this happening?
We're gonna make a date now.
One thing I should just emphasize is that this is all for the downtown area. This does not affect residential zones A or B.
That's right.
Oh, you have to make that very explicit.
Yes.
And then you're gonna have to remind them.
Huh?
And then you have to remind them.
Oh, and then remind me again at the end.
Right,
Yes,
right. It'll be important.
So we're turning the golf course into a village? Is that,
Put a big
that's-
sign at the front, this does not apply to, and they still won't.
Well, I mean, listen, I still think it's the right direction to go. I mean, I'm not sure otherwise, what
Oh, no, I
downtown Woodbridge
I-
looks like now is what it's always gonna look like, and it's not exactly like this Sturbridge
Right.
Village look. So I'm not sure what it's doing for us, and to be honest with you, I think it's I'm hoping developers feel the same way I do. I think our timing could be pretty good because there are so many, first of all, big stores going out because everybody's shopping online. Mom and pop stores, they're not going online, and people are gonna be happy to go down and hang out at a mom and pop store. Maybe you can move your office into a storefront or something. I'm just saying.
Probably not, but we can get my office part turned into a little village area.
Yeah, look at you.
Call
Talk to your
Bruce.
landlord.
I'll take care of Jill, you get Bruce.
Is that condos over there or rentals?
Yes, both.
I actually think there's enormous potential over there. When you go over
Yeah, I
there
do
now, and it's sort of one of the reasons it doesn't really feel like a place is in part because the buildings are so far apart from each
There's
other.
huge parking lots in front. I know.
But there really is huge potential.
You know, we didn't talk about this, but the street that what's the Urbano's Plaza there?
Valley Road.
What is it? That's Valley Road?
Bradley.
Bradley.
That's Valley Road. That also should have, that would be pretty cool. I mean that is a perfect example of what's wrong with big parking lots. And I'll never forget him saying, "Oh, we actually increased the parking lot because we had all this land." But it would be pretty cool if suddenly there were buildings up along that street with sidewalks, and then the parking lot was behind it. I mean, you have to have a certain area open because you obviously don't want to block the businesses that are. Sorry about that one.
That's all right. You don't want to block any businesses.
Okay. Block any businesses in the plaza, but the idea being that you know, I don't know, it would be pretty cool.
So we have to pick a date?
Yeah. Our meeting is on the 5th, so it could be the week of the 19th, which is actually only 2 weeks, or the week of the 26th.
The 19th is President's Day. I'm happy to be here, but I don't know if anybody
So I'm
else
going to
is.
assume that's probably must be vacation week.
Monday and Tuesday for the kids?
Is that the whole week?
No, not anymore. It's
No.
Monday and Tuesday.
But you're
I'm
talking
fine.
about this month, or next month?
No, this one. So maybe the week of the 26th then. People don't get you don't get February vacation anymore.
2 days.
2 days.
Poor kids.
They were just on break in December. What do they need? They need a break in March.
Did you give them a break in March?
I would if I were in charge. They need a week off in March. They don't need 2 days off in February.
February is when you're supposed to take people skiing.
Right.
March, a little late.
No, it's perfect bridge, but to June is the end of the year.
Okay.
Right in the middle.
Okay, how about the week of the 26th? Are you in town?
Just not Monday, but whatever it was.
Okay, so Chris, we should send out look at the week of the 26th.
Are we excluding Monday? Or-
Yes.
So the 27th, 28th, or March 1st?
I cannot do Thursday.
March 1st.
I can't do March 1st.
So the 27th or the 28th? And you want to do it down in the senior center again?
I think so. It's Bob last time.
I was gonna say it's,
You become?
One
No.
person.
No way, really?
no,
Well, no, I
Emily,
mean,
maybe
no,
Emily Jim.
for our last hearing. What was that for?
How about doing it at the mother church?
That was for the
Why would we do that?
square footage.
You want to go to them?
I've never been in the mother church.
Ah.
So, I don't know if I can do that. But we can certainly consider it.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have like an auditorium there or something?
No.
We had a big neighborhood meeting there.
Was it downstairs or upstairs?
It was upstairs.
In the actual
Sanctuary.
sanctuary?
Well attended. Just a thought.
Okay. It wasn't exactly a pleasant meeting,
We sure got a lot of opinions.
though. Yes, right. Okay. So let's do that. We can put this online. And we should hopefully make a decision on maps. And next week we can also get that online. All right, cool. Question, Chris, I forgot to, so this whole, on January 5th, they have a request for AT&T, and then on January 17th, they say that it's incomplete. So what is that? So we're not doing anything with it then?
You can't do anything with it anyway, because it's all under the siding council, but it's just letting you be in the loop so that
Right.
you know what's happening.
So right now, nothing's happening because it,
Correct, they're apparently looking for more information.
okay, that's what I thought. Okay, cool. So we have some minutes for approval. January 2nd. I just have a couple of comments. I think only one on here, but it's kind of been already resolved. But where it says the chairman stressed that those documents need to be in hand a minimum of 10 days before the public hearing, it was a request. On page 2, bottom. So I don't think I can make them do that because it's not in our. Any other comments for January 2nd meeting?
No.
I move they be approved as a comment.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. January 18th. Couple of comments. Can't even read my own writing. Oh yeah, in the middle of the page 2, in response to the letter from Leland Torrance, his claim that they do not follow the new urbanist concepts, I think what I said was, I don't have the paper in front of me, was that what we did follows exactly this new urbanist smart code. It wasn't based on it, it's directly out of there. And then in the second part, in response to the concern that the commission must have a full-time planner, and then it says that was not feasible. I don't really remember that statement being made, but the point is we do have a part-time planner consultant that we use. I don't know if I want to say that it's not feasible.
And the first bullet point under public hearing, it should be commissioner, not commission.
We're trying to upgrade you, Larry.
Pardon?
We're just trying to upgrade you, Larry, that's all.
I may be big enough.
Oh yeah, and this expression about moving up the hill is awkward. But on page 3, The intent was also to have young professionals stay and then move into a house in Woodbridge, as opposed to moving up the hill. A little condescending. Again, I don't have the written part that we did for the zone, the text amendment, but on here, you have it in here as, this should be checked, because it says the applicant shall provide vegetative screening, fencing, or other visual buffers to provide adequate buffering for surrounding areas. But really, it also is supposed to be buffering if there's parking under the building.
That's not what she had. I took exactly what she had and I have
Yeah.
to proof it.
We should check that.
It's already in. I mean, I used the exact language that she provided you.
All right, well, I still think we should check it. And then also, I'm not picking on you, but if someone's absent, I mean, Paul wasn't here, so he should be listed as absent.
It said excused.
He's excused.
Where does it say you're excused?
The
Right at the
beginning.
very beginning.
Okay, fine.
My subtle thing between
I thought she blew you
excused
off, I
and
was trying to save
absent.
it.
I sent a note, I sent
Yeah,
a
when
request
he
to be
lets me know,
excused.
he's excused. People
get a
who are
doctor's
not
note.
letting me know are absent.
I hear you, I, okay.
My mom said it was okay.
I didn't want anyone to say that we forgot you. Okay, so is there a motion to accept the minutes?
As amended.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Wait a minute, who seconded?
Larry, Steve.
Oh,
Whoever you want.
whoever you want, on this side. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
All right, excused. All right. I think that's it. If anybody thinks of other things that they think would be helpful in the presentation, that would be great. Send that email. Give us some pictures, things that you should focus on. Just something to think about.
The big issue is getting people to come.
Right.
The more that we can relate it to actual Woodbridge, the easier, well, the more that we can relate what we're proposing to actual Woodbridge situations, the more people will be able to understand it, I believe.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.